Hi, this is Sheldon here again, and just wanted to give you guys a little bit of background about myself and my meditation practice and how that kind of came about for me, and then a couple of quick tips that I feel um, were most important for me in sort of developing a practice that was effective, that worked for me. First of all, I started with practicing things that were similar to meditation. Mostly what I'm talking about is Tai Chi and Qigong. Tai Chi is a form of moving meditation. Qigong is basically loosely translated as energy exercises. And I started that back in 1989. So it's been a bit ago. Um, and developed a particular type of qigong practice, internal breathing, energy development. Was training with a teacher in a form of Chinese kung fu called Silam Fatka, and did that for several years. And so it was over a period of a long time, many years, that practicing mostly that, and then started working into a practice of meditation, which I define the difference of meditation versus like qigong. Qigong is you're doing specific breathing exercises, and there's a specific mental process that's going on when you're doing that, and a different kind of awareness. Whereas meditation for me was very different. I did not practice Taoist meditation. I did not practice Buddhist meditation or any type of particular training. To be honest, what I'm sharing with you is basically my years of experience of playing with this stuff, and so. Yeah, it's been a long time coming, and this is just sort of the culmination of many years of playing with this stuff, and being tortured by it as well. So I've been through a lot of the things that people who are trying to meditate are struggling with, and so definitely went through all of that on my own, basically in my room without any teachers. And so I thought I'd share some of what's come about from me. So we'll get going. The first thing I wanted to share is that the way I look at meditation is that if you understand anything about yin yang, the active and passive, and the whole yin yang symbol, most of what we are in our world today and what's emphasized and what we're all about is what I would call yang, which is active. So it's the doing, being the doer, being the make it happen, and you got to make it happen, and you got to be the doer, and you got to take charge, and all that kind of stuff. And that's what is emphasized and what is valued in Western society today almost exclusively. So the other side of that, the other side of that coin, is the being aspect, the presence aspect. It's considered often passive, but it is definitely not weak. And so it's the other side of this coin of doing and being, or yin and yang. And so I think the most common thing that people, when they're trying to go turn towards meditation or practice meditation, this is what I definitely did, was you're taking an active yang approach. In other words, I'm going to clear my mind of thoughts. I'm going to make my mind quiet. And that just doesn't work. As a matter of fact, there is a saying in Chinese about the monkey mind, which is when you actively try to clear your mind, it actually gets more active. The thought of clearing your mind is a thought, and so you're redoubling on thoughts, and you can actually get really super crazy. I always describe it as like it's not even linear. It was like 12 different thoughts coming in at the same time from all different directions. So it's not even one thought after another. It's like 12 simultaneous thoughts flooding into your mind. And I'm sure there's people out here who are listening to this who have experienced that kind of thing when you're actively trying to clear your mind. So the first thing is it's not an active process. So that's why that doesn't work. It's a process that is passive in nature. So it takes a very different approach. And it's basically, probably heard or read about, the act of allowing, of witnessing. And the best kind of analogy that I can give you is to make this really clear for you is that it's like if you take a bathtub and you're filling it with water. And you got the faucet going into water and the waves are all going there, and you turn off the faucet but the waves are there. The active approach to smoothing out the waves on the water would be like taking your hands and trying to pat the water down until it was perfectly smooth. And every time you touch the water with your hand, what happens? You generate more waves. So that is what happens to your mind when you are actively trying to quiet your mind. You're literally creating more activity, more energy into the mind, more waves. So if you think about it, and I said, quiet the waters and you just turned off the faucet and watched it and sat there and did absolutely nothing, that water in that bathtub would quiet itself eventually, right? You just have to wait and watch, and if you're patient for a couple of minutes, eventually the rough waves would turn into gentle rolling waves, and then eventually it would smooth out and it'd become perfectly still in a matter of time. In other words, you would just have to be patient enough to wait and watch without doing anything actively, and that bathtub water would naturally quiet itself. The crazy thing when you think about it is that is actually the natural state of your mind, is that it's supposed to be quiet like that. But because we are constantly surrounded and because our culture is emphasizing so much activity all the time, it's like the bathtub that's completely turbulent with waves. And so some of us, and many of us, don't even know what it feels like to ever have the water completely calm and completely quiet, because it's just not something that we've ever been raised in our society at all. So it can take a little bit of time, but I think it's really important that you understand that it's not something you do; it's something that you're allowing. And in Buddhism, they do have that metaphor that the thoughts are like clouds passing through the sky, and that you're not the clouds, you're not the thoughts, you're actually the sky in which the clouds pass through. So if you're allowing these thoughts to pass through your mind, eventually you start to become more in contact with the sky itself rather than the clouds. And I would have to say that's really true. That's something you can definitely experience, and that is a very accurate metaphor that I like to use, that I just used, because it definitely is true. So the second thing, I just have really three quick things. The second thing that I have is the idea of expectations. When I started, because I was very active, very yang approach to life and everything, and I was coming from having done a lot of Qigong exercises and martial arts and was still continuing to practice that, I said, if I'm going to meditate, I'm going to be the best meditator there is. I'm going to kick its ass. I'm going to, I'm going to kick its ass, basically. I watch this and here we go, like that, and that kind of whole attitude towards meditation. I'm going to wipe these thoughts out of my mind. And so again, as I was saying, it doesn't work. I got super frustrated. All kinds of crazy things were happening. The monkey mind was going bonkers, and I didn't have a teacher for meditation, and I wasn't at that time reading any books about it. I was just like freaking out, like totally freaking out. But what I kind of stumbled across purely by accident, which was actually really definitely a beautiful synchronicity it was meant to be, was I got so frustrated, but at one point I just sat there and I said, all right, F it. I'm a meditator. I don't even know what that means, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to meditate every goddamn day. But I'm not going to put any expectation on how long or what that looks like. So I'm going to do this every day, period, for some amount of time, and I don't care what it looks like. And just purely by accident, by chance, by doing that, what I'd done was I had let go of all expectation, because expectation is in and of itself a kind of thought. It's a kind of pressure that you're putting on yourself for performance. Again, it's a yang kind of thing. It's like, what are you going to do? What are you going to get out of this? And what I was doing by kind of surrendering to the process is another way of putting it. I was just letting go of all expectations. You know what? F it. I'm just going to do it. It can be 10 seconds. And there were days when I would, and I used to do it standing at first, where I would stand right before I was going to bed, and it would be like 10 seconds, 5 seconds, and I'd be like, all right, I'm done. That's it. Done for the day. But I would do it every single day. So that's kind of tying in with my third kind of tip, is there is this sort of discipline that needs to happen. In other words, a discipline without an expectation. In other words, I was willing to practice every single day, but I was also allowing myself to not dictate or not have an expectation about what that practice was going to look like. In other words, it could be, like I said, it could be 5-10 seconds, and I was like, I'm done. But I did it again the next day, and I did it again the next day, and I did it again the next day, every single day without fail, because I'm pretty disciplined like that. But again, I gave myself permission to just do whatever. And then one day it was like 20 minutes, and I was just like, whoa, what happened? And I didn't even realize that it was 20 minutes. It just happened. Again, I kind of was getting into this process of just sort of surrendering to the process, letting go of all the expectations, allowing the sort of the thought stream, and sort of stumbled into this idea of just witnessing what was going on. And it happened. Wayne Dyer describes, and I think there's books written about calling getting in the gap, because what happened when you start to let go of the expectations and you let go of the pressure, and you start to allow yourself, is that the thoughts do become linear. They're continuous but linear. They're just bam, bam, bam. Oh, I got to do this. Oh, my butt hurts. Oh, I got to scratch here. Oh, tomorrow I got to do this. Oh, I forgot about that. Oh, darn it, this happened. Oh, whatever. But they're constant and continuous. And then all of a sudden, boom. It's like, oh yeah, bam. Oh, and I gotta do this, bam. And that's why, again, I think I'm sure I know there's books out there called Getting in the Gap. I believe Wayne Dyer wrote a book called that, if not a bunch of other people. And it's about getting in the gap between the thoughts. And that starts to happen. It takes a little bit of time. But again, if you have expectation, if you have this pressure that you're putting on yourself, if you're actively trying to force the thoughts out, all you're doing is putting more thoughts and pressure into the generation of thoughts. You're activating the waves with your hands. So you just have to step back and sort of surrender to the process without expectation, and just give yourself and have enough discipline to sort of practice over and over again until you start to feel certain shifts happening. So that's really it. Those are my 3 tips. Again, they definitely will make a difference in your practice, and I would look forward to hearing from you if you have anything you want to share about that. My name is Sheldon, and you can email me at sheldon@activepeacestrategies.com. That's activepeacestrategies.com. There's my website, activepeacestrategies.com, and you can email Sheldon at activepeacestrategies.com if you have any comments or feedback. I would love to hear from you about your experiences, about whether or not these tips have helped you. And I'll be posting some others in the future. So thanks for listening. You take care.